Hello students, today we are going to deal with a short story titled A Cup of Tea by Katherine Mansfield. When you listen to short story, you prefer reading a short story compared to a novel. You have few characters in a short story. The time you spend on reading is less when compared to reading a novel. The plot is simple and the number of twists that you come across are also very few or sometimes just one. That is the advantage of reading a short story. You can just read for a while at one go and get away with that. Now the present short story that we have selected is A Cup of Tea by Katherine Mansfield. When we talk about cup of tea, what comes to your mind? What could be the story about?
A conversation between the people in a short time.
A conversation between people over a cup of tea. It could be something like that, or an incident that could have happened during having a cup of tea, or a cup of tea might be very significant in the story. Otherwise, that wouldn't have been the title. So you obviously understand that a cup of tea is very significant for the story. This story is written, as I told you, by Katherine Mansfield. Before we get into the plot of the story and discuss the characters, let us get to know about the author Katherine Mansfield. She was born on 14th of October 1888. She is from New Zealand, a very prominent modernist writer of short fiction. At a young age of 19, she moved to Great Britain. There, she met her friends D.H. Lawrence and Virginia Woolf. Have you read any of D.H. Lawrence?
Sons and Lovers.
Sons and Lovers, yes. D.H. Lawrence, the moment you hear it reminds you of Sons and Lovers. And of course, Virginia Woolf, which
To the
work of
Lighthouse, Mrs. Dalloway.
Yes, Mrs. Dalloway and other works.
Others.
So, she has become very close friends with D.H. Lawrence and Virginia Woolf, and their association has an impact on her writing style as well. Have you read any of Katherine Mansfield's works? The Fly.
The Fly.
The Fly. Another two stories by Katherine Mansfield are The Garden Party, The Daughters of the Late Colonel. You understand by reading various works of Katherine Mansfield that her writing style is very simple and appealing to the readers. Unfortunately, during the First World War, she contracted pulmonary tuberculosis, because of which she could not come back to New Zealand, but she had to meet her death at a very early age of 34. This cup of tea was included in the collection of short stories titled The Dove's Nest and Other Stories. This collection was edited by Katherine Mansfield's husband, John Middleton Murray. It appeared in 1923 collection. The title is The Dove's Nest and Other Stories. All her stories, the 10 stories which are included in the collection, are well portrayed, and the introduction which John Middleton Murray gave show what the stories or the themes of the stories would be in the successive stories. Let's get into the plot of the story. As I told you, the main character is Rosemary Fell. She is extremely rich, filthy rich you can call. So what is generally the attitude of rich people towards the society, towards the poor people?
Doesn't care about the poor and they are very proud.
Okay. They feel proud of being rich, and at
Yeah.
the same time they don't really consider poor people as worth, right?
They have their
As
own
worthy.
attitude. They feel they are the great and they are the king, and they don't care for the people who are nothing.
Okay. So they have their own attitude and they don't care for the people who are not really rich. Yes, and how they show their attitude of being rich is what you see in the character Rosemary. She happens to be a wife of a rich husband, so she has nothing to do but go shopping. The way she goes shopping is very well explained by the author, saying that she goes all the way to Paris just for shopping, just as any would go to the neighboring street. And there's one such antique shop. You all know what antique is, right? So she would go to a shop where she has a wonderful collection of antique pieces. She was a frequent visitor to that shop. So when she's a frequent visitor and being rich, she doesn't really care what she's buying. All that matters to her is only that the piece should be expensive. She would buy things only if they are expensive because she wants to show it off that she is rich and she doesn't care a damn for money, right? So she picks up things which are not really worth buying. She doesn't think about the utility, but she goes buying them because she feels she should buy them being rich. Obviously, the shopkeeper, who is aware of this habit of hers, he would definitely take advantage. He makes a good business. He shows her all the pieces that people would rather not buy, and he would flatter her, telling that this is an exclusive piece and people of only artistic taste would go for it. And obviously, she would get carried away and buy those things. That is about Rosemary. So this lady happens to meet a poor girl on a cold night when she just finishes her shopping and she is out of that antique shop. She meets this girl, Miss Smith. Miss Smith is very poor. She's shivering in the cold. She comes to Rosemary asking for some money that would help her buy a cup of tea. What she does is she neither gives her money nor rejects it. Something else comes to her mind of a romantic adventure. Why not me play the godmother that appears in the novels? Why not I help this poor girl? Rich people can also show benevolence, can also be generous. She wants to show her generosity and she wants to talk about this generous act of hers among her friends. So, to throw an air of generosity, she wants that girl to come along with her to her house. What would be the reaction of the girl at this? She was confused, startled. What is this? She should either give me some money or ask me to get away from here. But this lady asks me to come along with her. So she also suspects, is she really intending to help me? Or is she going to hand me over to the police? She was confused. She was not willing to go. But Rosemary was bent on her idea that she should make an adventure. So she convinced the girl that she's not going to do anything of calling the police or something, but she just wants to treat her. Because rich people can also be kind, can also be benevolent. She wants to show it. And more so, being a woman, she feels that it is the duty of a woman to help another suffering woman. So this is how she convinces her and takes her home along with her. Once at home, she sees that the girl is made comfortable. She's taken to her bedroom. She's given bread, butter, sandwiches, tea and everything, and she's made to sit comfortable. Rosemary was willing to give her her clothes and make the girl feel better, and also to the extent of making the girl stay with her. She thought she would give her a life. Suddenly, her husband, Philip, enters. He was shocked to see a girl, but he doesn't say a word. Rosemary introduces the girl to her husband as her friend. He wishes her and he calls Rosemary to the library to have a small talk. When they are alone, he inquires of the girl. He says, "You better send her away. It's not good to have a girl here at home." She was not ready to send away the girl. She wanted her to stay, and she didn't understand the intention of her husband, why he was asking her to send her away. Then the husband, that is Philip, he thinks of an idea and he says, "Okay, fine, let her stay back because she's pretty, she's lovely and beautiful. so we'll have dinner with her tonight. The moment he utters these words, her ego is hurt, her feminine ego is hurt. She couldn't take somebody being praised, so she thinks that this is the time for her to react. She immediately gets back to the room, gives her some money, and she sends the girl away. This is how we come to know how Rosemary changes her character, changes her colors. She comes back to her husband to confirm. She asks, "Am I not beautiful?" Now, after knowing the brief plot of the story, let's deal with the characters in detail. How many characters have you noticed in all? Three, four. As I told you in the beginning, it's easy to remember the characters in the short story because they are very few, right? But the fact being that all characters are not major and important, you don't seem to pay attention that this character also existed. One character that you might have forgotten is the shopkeeper. Yes. So you have one major character, the protagonist, Rosemary Fell, her husband Philip, the poor girl, Miss Smith. Okay. We'll start with Rosemary. Rosemary, as you have seen in the plot of the story, is an extremely rich lady. In the introduction, the author says she's not extremely beautiful, but she has made it up with fashion, her style, her experience, the way she goes marketing, the way she buys things and accessories, the positions that she carried with her. All these make her a feeling. You cannot call her extremely beautiful, but she happens to be a beautiful lady, right? And coming to her attitude, she's rich, but she's not proud, or she doesn't get carried away being rich. All that she intends is to show that rich people can be generous and benevolent. She has a habit of reading, and this reading has made her believe that certain things can happen in real life as well. But she's been waiting for a chance. When would I show off all this in real life? Right? And at the same time, she has another shade of her character. When it comes to self-interest and ego, when it's fighting against showing benevolence, the reality and the imagination fights. It's always the reality that wins, the true color that comes out. That is what we see in Rosemary Fell, finally when she comes out with the true colors. When she goes to the antique shop, the frequent visitor of an antique shop, we don't see her character. We only see that she is rich and she is happy being rich. She wants to throw an air. She wants to show it to everybody that she is being rich. She wants to purchase things. One such antique box that she wants to purchase is a blue small wooden box which she selects. She asks for the price, but never to know if she can afford to buy or not, but only to pay them the bill. She was not a person who would find out the price and decide whether it's worth buying or not. In fact, she believes that if she purchases the expensive entire lot, only then her shopping has been successful. She never thinks of the utility of the objects. And so, when finally towards the end, her husband Philip praises the girl, she could not take it because she wanted all his attention to be towards her. He should always praise only her, and all his money should be only for her to spend away. That was her intention towards her life, and she did not think or accept anything out of this. So suddenly when Philip says that the girl is pretty, lovely and beautiful, she couldn't take it. And all the benevolence which she wanted to show, all the generosity that she wanted to pour down has come to an end. The reality is that she is egoistic, self-centered, interested in her own self, and she wanted to send the girl away. And for this, she gets a reward that she can go and shop for that antique box which she has selected, which is not really worth anything. That is the main character, Rosemary Fell. Coming to the next important character, that is Miss Smith. It is because of her the story takes a turn. She is very important. Though she doesn't have much role to play, she is very important in the story, because had she not been in the story, had she not met Rosemary, there wouldn't be any question of Rosemary expressing her generosity, nor would there be a chance of Rosemary's character being revealed. Right? So Miss Smith is a poor girl, a simple girl, who just wanted money for a cup of tea. She was shocked when she was offered to visit a rich house, and when she entered, even then she was perplexed, she was confused at what was happening, and she was also doubtful about anything might happen anytime. She was not very confident, she was not very comfortable. The way she was seated when at home shows that she was not very comfortable, because she was not sure this lady was really helping her out. There could be anything that might pop up, some unexpected incident might happen. She was prepared for all that. That is because of her social status. That is Miss Smith. Coming to the next important character, Philip. This is also a minor character, but at the same time an important character. It is because of him that we come to know the true colors of Rosemary. Had he not praised the poor girl, we wouldn't have had to see the true colors of Rosemary. Had he not told her, he tried to convince, but she was not to get convinced. But he had to try something else, that is to praise her so that she realizes the reality, she understands the fact, and she takes the decision, the right decision of sending the girl away. Next we have the shopkeeper, a very minor character, as some of you have forgotten it as well. He is important because through him we come to know the attitude of Rosemary. How the shopkeepers take advantage of the behavior of rich people. You can also see this in the society, how they take advantage of that. He tries to bring all the antique pieces to her, show her that they are exclusive, extravagant, and only for Rosemary Fell to purchase, because he says that such peace can be only in the hands of worthy people, people who can really appreciate the art. And when he uses such words and tries to flatter her, she gets carried away and she thinks it's an insult on her part if she doesn't purchase that. She thinks, if I don't buy this, he might think I cannot afford for this, or I don't have a taste for this. So, though she doesn't have a taste for it, whether she likes it or not, whether it is useful for her or not, she just goes for buying it. That is how the shopkeeper is important, because it shows her character in the beginning. Now that we have seen the story, the characters, the significance in the story, we move on to the themes that we have observed in the story. Can you identify any major theme in the story?
Feminist ego of Rosemary.
Very good. Anything else?
The attitude of rich.
Yes. So, shall we term it as the social consciousness?
Yeah, we can tell.
Yes. So, we have two major themes that we can observe in this short story. One is the class distinction, the social consciousness, and the other is the feminism, the feminist ego, as you have seen in the main character, Rosemary. To start with the social distinctions, you have a couple of incidents which reveal that how you can really see the social distinction. One is Rosemary, her attitude when she visits the antique shop, that is, how rich people form a different class in the society, how she sees herself as a different entity from the rest of the people, how she throws an air of her richness, the way she puts her hand and the way she looks at the collection of things, how she picks up the things from the collection, all these portray the class consciousness that she maintains. Even the attitude of Philip, when he comes home, he doesn't want to have an outsider at home. His attitude is also an indication of the social distinctions people generally maintain. The social consciousness as you observe in Rosemary and Philip in their behavior. Another incident, another example that can show you that the social consciousness or the distinction existing is between Rosemary and the poor girl. When you compare and contrast, you see that Rosemary is extremely rich. She gets carried away. The way she reads her novels, the fiction, she imagines herself to be adventurous and romantic, and how she wastes a lot of money on useless things, some of them useless of course. And here on the other side, on the contrast, you have poor girl. She's shivering out of cold. She doesn't even have a proper clothing, and she's here begging for just a mere cup of tea, an amount that would help her have a stimulating cup of tea which could keep her away from the cold in that night. So that is the contrast. So this is how you can see the distinction, the social distinctions as portrayed in the story Cup of Tea. Now coming to the next theme of the story, that is feminist ego. In the beginning, Rosemary was very much interested in showing that women bonding, a feminine bonding is something common to women. That's what she believed. And this is also because of her reading novels. The impact that she drew, all women should help other women. It is a basic responsibility of a woman to take care of another woman who is suffering. So this feeling aroused in her, and she tries to show that sympathy, empathize with the poor girl and help her out because she feels she should help a poor girl, the poor girl who is suffering. So that feminine bonding, which started with helping a poor girl, takes another turn towards the end, where the ego, the self-interest, fights with this feeling of feminine bonding. There's no feminine bonding anymore because her own life is at stake. She doesn't want to put it at risk. She wants her life to be comfortable as it has been going, happily shopping, spending and leading her life with her rich husband Philip. So she wants to get rid of that girl at the earliest possible. She couldn't take it. She takes an immediate decision. She doesn't even tell her husband that she's going to send the girl away. She goes directly to her drawer, takes the money, gives the girl, and she just sends her away. The girl was once again perplexed. She was not knowing what's happening to her. When she asked for some money, she was offered to come home. And when she was feeling comfortable, she was asked to leave. So the girl, being poor, had to take in whatever has come. This is again a social distinction. Now let us move on to the writing style of Katherine Mansfield. When you read a short story, it's not just the story that you read, the characters that are portrayed in the story, and how are the situations that are dealt with. These reveal the writing style of an author. When you read Katherine Mansfield's story, what style of her do you observe? You might have observed that it's very simple, appealing, and you can really empathize with the characters in the story. The protagonist, Rosemary, was introduced with a tone of irony. Though the story is portrayed from the perspective of Rosemary, we do notice that the author says, "No, You couldn't have called her beautiful. This portrays that the story is depicted in a tone of irony. We also come across many such examples in the story, where Catherine Mansfield portrays that Rosemary goes shopping all the way to Paris just like any ordinary man would go to Bond Street. We do observe that the human emotions are dealt with in a very tender and fragile manner. This we can notice how there is a conflict in a woman's mind when there is a fight between the reality and the romantic dreams. When you read Rosemary, you do empathize with the character. You understand that yes, such characters do exist in real life. She's not out of the way. You don't think that a lady like Rosemary is not possible to be found anywhere in your real life situations. You do come across people like that, where a lady wants to be benevolent, she wants to express that she is good and gentle, and at the same time, there is a fight, an inner conflict which stops her from doing it. So this character portrayal by Rosemary, through Rosemary by Catherine Mansfield, is an example of her writing style. Catherine Mansfield is considered to be one of the best modernist short story writers. She deals with the human emotions, and this we come across through the portrayal of her characters. When you read Rosemary, you understand that such people do exist. You almost come to believe such is the appealing effect of Catherine Mansfield's portrayal of characters. That is why she is known for her writing style. She has become famous for her short stories in the era of her contemporary writers.